Hey everybody, this is Andre here with the Kevin Breeze channel, and in this video, we're going to be doing a comparison between the LG Harmony 4 and the LG Fortune 3. So let's get started. So the LG Harmony 4 has a 6.1-inch LCD display with a resolution of 720p, a PPI of 282, and an aspect ratio of 19.5 by 9. We got a water drop notch here for the front-facing camera, and this camera is 8 megapixels. The LG Fortune 3 has a 5.7-inch LCD display with a resolution of 720p, a PPI of 295, and an aspect ratio of 19 by 9. We got a water drop notch here for the front-facing camera as well that looks pretty much the exact same, and this camera is 5 megapixels. So I would say overall, the LG Harmony 4 has a much bigger display than the LG Fortune 3. A 6.1-inch is definitely going to have an advantage over a 5.7-inch display. Whether you're doing content consumption like video streaming or just viewing photos or maybe even reading, having a larger display is going to be an advantage because you'll be able to see details and writing and all sorts of things just better. It's a better experience overall. And at the same time, the LG Harmony 4 still isn't so big that it's uncomfortable to carry around. I would say, on the other hand, the LG Fortune 3 is almost too small by today's standards. There was a time where it would have been considered a bigger display, but nowadays, with phones being so much bigger than this, I would say the LG Fortune 3 could be a little bit bigger, but as it is, the LG Harmony 4 definitely has the advantage here. The LG Harmony 4 is getting 32 gigabytes of internal storage with microSD card expansion up to 32 gigabytes as well. And the LG Fortune 3 is getting 16 gigabytes of internal storage, also with microSD card expansion limited at 32 gigabytes. So once again, the LG Harmony 4 does have an advantage here with double the storage. Now, neither of these are very impressive. 32 gigabytes isn't a whole lot. With the apps and system data getting larger and larger as time goes on, having more storage is definitely important. And these days, I would consider 64 gigabytes of internal storage to be more useful. But between the two, the LG Harmony 4 is okay. With 32 gigabytes, you're not going to be able to do a whole lot, but you will be able to have a decent amount of apps. And you could fit a decent amount of photos and videos on it as well, especially with the microSD card expansion. But with the LG Fortune 3, you're going to be able to fit barely anything on this phone. Maybe a few apps and a few photos and videos here and there. But even for the average user, 16 gigabytes is pretty low, and it's going to be a lot more constraining. Neither of these phones have wireless charging or face unlock, but the LG Harmony 4 actually has a fingerprint scanner, so that's nice. Unfortunately, the LG Fortune 3 doesn't have a fingerprint scanner at all, so you're going to have to put in a PIN or a password or a pattern to unlock this phone, which is pretty inconvenient because in this day and age with the technology we have, I think every phone should have at least a fingerprint scanner, if not face unlock as well. But at least the LG Harmony 4 does have a fingerprint scanner. The fingerprint scanner for this phone is located right here on the back. Real convenient spot, easy to reach. We're going to go ahead and test that out right now. There we go. One more time. And there we go. It's real fast and responsive. No problem with that at all. I'm definitely glad that this phone has one because as you can see with the LG Fortune 3, there are many phones in this price range that don't. Now taking a look at the rear camera setup of the LG Harmony 4, we got a 13 megapixel rear camera and a 5 megapixel ultra-wide camera. And even though there's no depth sensing camera, this phone is actually capable of using portrait mode in both the rear and the front cameras, so that's real nice. Definitely not the most feature-packed camera out there, but it is pretty decent for what it is. For the LG Fortune 3, we got a 13 megapixel rear camera and a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera as well. So camera wise, these phones have pretty much the same features. I wouldn't say necessarily one is better than the other, although the front facing camera of the LG Harmony 4 is a little bit better quality. For video, both of these phones are able to shoot in qualities up to 1080p. So again, not really much of a difference there. I would give the LG Harmony 4 a little bit of an advantage if you want to be taking more photos, because not only does it have a better front-facing camera, but with the larger display, it's going to be easier to frame things when you're taking photos, and viewing them is going to be a better experience. Internally, the LG Harmony 4 is getting 3 GB of RAM with the MediaTek Helio P22 processor. We ran a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on this phone, and it came back with a single core score of 139 and a multi-core score of 488. The LG Fortune 3 is getting 2 GB of RAM with the MediaTek Helio P22 processor as well. We ran a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on this phone, and it came back with a single core score of 139 and a multi-core score of 480. So this is basically the exact same. These phones have the same processor, pretty much everything is going to be the same. The only difference here is that the LG Harmony 4 has an extra gigabyte of RAM, which is going to help a little bit with things like multitasking. Otherwise, there's not a difference in processing power in these phones, definitely not significant enough for it to be a real deciding factor. But I will say the processing power of these two phones is not great. It's going to be perfectly fine for basic activities like sending text messages, making calls, browsing the web a little bit, and going on some social media here and there. But if you're trying to do anything else, if you want to play games on the phone, doing photo editing, video editing, any type of software with animation or anything like that, these phones are both going to struggle quite a bit because they're really not made for those types of higher end activities. As far as the battery goes, the LG Harmony 4 does have a tiny bit of an advantage with a 3500 mAh battery versus the LG Fortune 3 with a 3000 mAh battery. Now these batteries are not the greatest, they're not very big, but on the other hand, they're not the smallest either. The iPhone 12 actually has a smaller battery than either of these phones with a 2815 mAh battery. So although these batteries aren't very impressive, at least they're not as bad as the iPhone 12. That being said, they are going to work pretty much fine, but just keep in mind that if you have either of these phones, they are going to have pretty average battery life, probably not amazing. But I would say between the two, if battery life is important to you, the LG Harmony 4 is going to be the better option. Now, in conclusion, which of these phones is better? I'm going to give this one to the LG Harmony 4. These phones are almost the complete same in a lot of different ways, but the LG Harmony 4 has a clearly larger display, which is going to help you with content consumption and reading and viewing photos and that sort of thing. It has double the storage, and in this case, it's really acceptable versus barely usable. 16 gigabytes is just not enough to do normal activities on, whereas 32, although it's not ideal, is quite a bit better and definitely pretty usable for the average user. As far as the camera goes, even though these phones have pretty much the same camera specs, the LG Harmony 4 has a better front-facing camera and the display is bigger, which is going to help you take photos and view them too. The LG Harmony 4 also has 1 extra gigabyte of RAM, so even though the phones have the same processor and the same processing power, the LG Harmony 4 is going to be able to handle multitasking and that sort of thing a bit better. And finally, last but not least, the battery of the LG Harmony 4 is a little bit bigger than the battery of the LG Fortune 3. And since neither of these phones have very big batteries, this is a difference that I would pay attention to. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.